She always said I'd never find happiness without her, that the divorce would leave me broken, crawling back, begging for another chance. But what she never expected was that I'd slipped the very same ring she once flaunted onto her sister's finger. I know, it sounds messy, complicated, maybe even wrong. And trust me, when it all started, I didn't think it would spiral this far. I wasn't the type of guy who lived for drama. I just wanted peace, a fresh start after years of feeling like I was walking on eggshells. But the thing about people like my ex, people who thrive on control, is that they can't stand watching you move on. Especially if you're moving on with someone they never thought you'd touch. My name's Daniel. I'm 34. And when I walked out of that courthouse after the papers were signed, I thought the hardest part of my life was finally over. I thought I'd finally buried the toxic years of shouting matches, silent treatments, and endless manipulation. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. I could look at myself in the mirror and not feel like a shell of who I used to be. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs the moment you think you're safe. See, I didn't go looking for her sister. It wasn't like I had some secret plan to hurt my ex by going after the one person who could cut deepest. No, it started by accident. Innocent conversations, late-night check-ins when my world felt heavy, and then laughter. God, I hadn't laughed like that in years. And before I even realized it, the line I swore I'd never cross had already blurred. But that's not the part that stings the most. What really stings is that my ex thought she'd won. She paraded around town with her new boyfriend, smeared my name with anyone who'd listen, and posted every fake smile online like she was auditioning for the perfect life. And everyone believed her. To them, I was the bitter, lonely ex-husband, while she was the one who came out on top. She didn't know that behind the curtain, things were changing. That while she was busy gloating, her own sister was slowly becoming the light I didn't know I needed. And when I finally held that small velvet box in my hand again, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about one-upping her. It was about finally giving love a chance with someone who saw me for who I really was. But here's the thing. Secrets like that don't stay buried forever. Rings don't stay hidden in pockets. And love stories don't stay quiet when they're this explosive. Because the moment my ex found out, all hell broke loose. And the way she reacted? Let's just say, if you thought the divorce was ugly, you haven't heard anything yet. When I first met Claire, my ex-wife, I was 26, wide-eyed, and stupidly optimistic. She had this energy that pulled people in. Confident, magnetic, the kind of woman who walked into a room and somehow owned it without even trying. I thought she was my forever. Everyone did. My parents adored her, my friends envied me. And for a while, I believed the story too, that we were some perfect couple destined to beat the odds. But behind closed doors, things were different. The charm that dazzled everyone else started to feel like a weapon when it was pointed at me. She was sharp with her words, always reminding me of how much I owed her for sticking by me. If I succeeded at work, she found a way to make it about her. If I failed, she made sure I felt it 10 times worse. And slowly, I stopped recognizing myself. I stayed longer than I should have. People always wonder why. Why someone doesn't just leave when love turns toxic. The truth is, you cling to the good moments, those rare flashes when they look at you like they once did. You convince yourself it'll get better, that maybe you're just not trying hard enough. I wasted years telling myself that lie. The divorce wasn't pretty. She fought me on everything. Money, the house, even furniture we never used. And when it was finally over, she made sure to paint me as the villain. To her friends, her family, anyone who would listen, Daniel was cold, selfish, a man who couldn't keep a marriage alive. I let her have the narrative because I was too exhausted to fight. That's when Emily, her younger sister, stepped into the picture. Emily was the opposite of Claire in almost every way. Where Claire was loud, Emily was soft-spoken. Where Claire was always demanding attention, Emily was the kind of person who noticed the little things no one else did. She'd send me a text on holidays, ask how I was doing after court hearings, check in when she knew I was drowning in silence. At first, I kept my distance. It felt wrong, like crossing some invisible boundary that could never be uncrossed. But the more we talked, the more I realized how different she was, not just from her sister, but from anyone I'd ever known. With Emily, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I didn't feel judged. I just felt seen. Still, I knew what it looked like. I knew the kind of storm it could unleash if Claire ever found out. So, I told myself I'd draw a line, that I'd keep it friendly, safe, under control. But lines are fragile things. And the night Emily laughed so hard she cried while sitting across from me at a little diner off Main Street, that line vanished. Something shifted, something I couldn't take back. And that's when I realized my life was about to get a lot more complicated than I ever imagined. The first time Emily and I held hands, it wasn't planned. We were walking back to her car after grabbing coffee, the night air cold enough to make our breath visible. She brushed against me, her fingers grazing mine, and before I could even think, I held on. It was small, simple, but it felt like a spark that lit up everything I'd buried inside me. That's when the guilt hit. My chest tightened, my thoughts racing with Claire's voice in my head. You'll never move on. No one will ever love you like I did. And here I was, standing in a dark parking lot, falling for her sister. The weeks after that were a blur of emotions I couldn't control. Every time Emily and I talked, the bond deepened. Every time we laughed, I felt the weight of the past lift a little more. But then reality would come crashing back. This wasn't just some new relationship. It was the kind of scandal Claire would use to destroy us both. And the truth? I wasn't ready for the fallout. One night, Emily asked me the question I'd been dreading. Daniel, what happens when she finds out? I didn't have an answer. I wanted to say we'd figure it out together, that love was enough to carry us through, but deep down I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Claire didn't just let go. She clung. She controlled. And she fought dirtier than anyone I'd ever known. Meanwhile, whispers started. Claire's friends, who always had their eyes everywhere, noticed Emily and I spending more time together. One of them saw us at that diner again. Another claimed we looked too close at a family gathering. It wasn't long before Claire caught wind of the rumors. That's when the late-night texts began. Her name flashing across my phone, message after message, each one more biting than the last. You really think you can humiliate me? You'll regret this. Emily tried to reassure me, saying Claire was bluffing, that she'd calm down eventually. But I knew her better. Claire wasn't the type to let things slide. She was the type to burn everything around her just to win. And the night she showed up at my apartment uninvited, smiling like she knew every secret I'd tried to hide, my stomach dropped. Because in her eyes, I could already see it. She knew. The night Claire showed up at my apartment, she didn't knock like a normal person. She just leaned against the doorframe when I opened it, arms crossed, that sly smirk plastered across her face, the one she always wore right before she tore me down. Funny, she said, tilting her head. You've been quiet lately, almost like you're hiding something. My heart pounded so hard I thought she could hear it. Emily was in the kitchen, barely 10 feet away. If Claire stepped inside, it would all be over. I blocked the doorway, forcing a laugh, pretending like nothing was wrong. Claire's eyes scanned me up and down, sharp, calculating. You look happy, she whispered, almost like it was an insult. Then she leaned in close enough that her perfume hit me, the same one that used to cling to every piece of clothing I owned. Happiness doesn't suit you, Daniel. Not without me. She left that night without pushing further, but the look in her eyes haunted me. She knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough to keep me awake until dawn. Over the next few weeks, the tension only grew. Emily and I tried to be careful, but it was like Claire had spies everywhere. She'd show up at the grocery store when I was with Emily, pretending it was a coincidence. She'd accidentally tag me in bitter quotes online. She even called my mother, spinning stories about me being unstable. Every move was calculated. Every move screamed, I'm watching you. Emily tried to stay strong, but I could see the fear creeping in. One night, she broke down in my arms. She's my sister, Daniel. My own sister. How do we even survive this without ripping the whole family apart? I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that I loved her, and I wasn't willing to let Claire's poison dictate my life anymore. Still, I couldn't shake the paranoia. Every time the phone rang, every time I heard a knock at the door, I braced myself for the explosion. Because if there was one thing I knew about Claire, it was that she never attacked until she was sure she could cause the most damage. And then, one evening, it happened. Emily and I went out to a small Italian place on the edge of town. We thought it was safe, far from Claire's circle of friends. We laughed, shared a bottle of wine, let ourselves breathe for the first time in weeks. For a moment, it felt normal. But as we stepped out into the cool night air, I froze. Across the street, standing under a flickering street lamp, was Claire. Her phone in her hand, her expression unreadable, her eyes locked on us like a predator waiting to strike. And when Emily slipped her hand into mine, Claire lifted her phone, snapped a picture, and smiled. That's when I knew the real storm was about to hit. The photo Claire snapped wasn't just for her own satisfaction. She knew exactly what she was doing. The very next morning, Emily's phone blew up. Their parents had seen the picture. Her cousins. Even her boss. Claire had sent it to everyone with one poisonous message attached. Look what kind of betrayal my own sister is capable of. Emily's world collapsed overnight. Her family called her shameless. Her mother cried, saying she'd ruined the family name. And as if that wasn't enough, Claire twisted the knife deeper. She didn't just expose us. She filed a legal motion, claiming I had been unfaithful before the divorce was finalized. If she could prove it, everything I'd fought for in court, my home, my savings, even my reputation, would be dragged through the mud again. But the real gut punch. When Emily confronted Claire in person, Claire smirked and dropped a final bombshell. You think Daniel's yours now? You should probably ask him what he was doing the night we signed the papers. Emily's eyes snapped to mine, confusion and hurt flashing across her face. And in that single moment, I realized Claire wasn't just after revenge. She wanted to turn Emily against me completely. Emily stood there, her sister's words echoing in her head, her eyes locked on mine like she was searching for a crack in my soul. The restaurant parking lot spun around me. My chest tightened. This was Claire's game, divide and destroy. Daniel, Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Tell me she's lying. I wanted to scream, to tear the world apart just to prove my innocence. That night Claire referred to, I hadn't touched her. I hadn't even seen her. All I did was sign those papers and walk out. But Claire was clever. She always left just enough room for doubt. Emily, I swear to you, I said, my throat raw. The night we signed, I went straight home. Alone. She's twisting everything because she wants us broken. Don't let her win. Emily's tears glistened in the dim light, torn between love and loyalty. And then Claire stepped forward, enjoying every second of our unraveling. He's always been good at lying him. Don't forget, I taught him. That was the breaking point. For Emily, for me. She turned to her sister, voice shaking but firm. You don't get to control me anymore. And for the first time, Emily chose me. Out loud, in front of Claire. Claire's mask cracked. Her smirk faded into rage, her voice rising. You'll regret this. Both of you. The fight escalated until Claire stormed off, her threats hanging in the air like smoke. Emily collapsed into my arms, sobbing, but I held her tighter than I ever had. For the first time in years, I felt like I had actually won, not by hurting Claire, but by not letting her poison destroy us. But just as I thought the war was over, my phone buzzed. A single message lit the screen. From an unknown number. A picture of me and Emily, taken through the blinds of my apartment. And the text, you don't know the whole story. She's not who you think she is. I stared at that message for what felt like forever. My first instinct was panic. Claire had found another way in. But the number wasn't hers. I knew her style, her dramatic signatures, the way she always wanted her name attached to the destruction she caused. This was different. Emily noticed the color drain from my face. What is it? She whispered. I showed her the phone. She went pale, clutching her chest as if someone had physically struck her. Daniel, that's my dad's number. Her father had passed 2 years earlier. The family never got rid of his phone, keeping the number in the account out of sentiment, which meant someone else, someone close, had access. And if it wasn't Claire, then who? It turned out to be Emily's cousin, the one who always played messenger between the sisters, the one who always accidentally let things slip. She admitted she'd been feeding Claire information for months, sneaking around to stir the pot because she thought Emily was making a mistake by being with me. She thought she was protecting her family's honor. In reality, she'd nearly destroyed it. Once the truth came out, Claire's house of cards began to fall. With no proof of her accusations, the legal threats evaporated. Emily's parents, shaken and ashamed by how quickly they'd believed the worst, slowly came around, realizing Claire's bitterness had poisoned all of them for too long. The cousin was cut off. Claire, furious and exposed, retreated into her silence. And Emily? She stood by me. Through every whisper, every glare, every storm, she stayed. Not because it was easy, but because she finally saw the difference between her sister's version of love and what she and I were building together. Weeks later, I found myself holding that velvet box again, the same one I thought I'd never use after my divorce. But this time, when I slipped the ring onto Emily's finger, there was no guilt, no hesitation, just hope, a new beginning. It wasn't perfect. People still talked. Family wounds didn't heal overnight. And there were days when Claire's shadow loomed over us like a ghost. But love isn't about perfect. It's about choosing each other, even when the world tries to pull you apart. So when people ask me if I regret it, falling for my ex-wife's sister, I tell them no. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't living under someone else's control. I was free. And Emily was by my side, not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as the woman who reminded me what it felt like to be alive again. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Happiness doesn't come from proving someone wrong. It comes from finally letting yourself be right where you're meant to be. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's moving on and loving louder than the pain they left behind.